Today's question, what happens when we try to help God? Genesis 16. And buckle up, because this one's about what happens when we try to help God out instead of waiting on Him. Spoiler alert, it causes drama. Yet, even in the middle of the mess, God still shows grace. Ain't He good? Verses 1 and 2, we see Sarah's plan, not God's promise. So Sarah, Abram's wife, had not been able to bear children for him, but she did have an Egyptian servant named Hagar. Now remember, God's already promised Abram a son, but 10 years have passed and Sarah's getting a little impatient. So she does what a lot of us do. She goes to Abram and she says, hey, the Lord has prevented me from having children, so go and sleep with my servant. Perhaps I can have some children through her. Now hold up, that might have been legal in their culture, but it wasn't God's will. God don't need our help keeping His promises. This is human effort trying to force divine timing, and that always leads to trouble. Verses 3 and 4, we see that it gets messy real fast. So Abram had sexual relations with Hagar and she became pregnant. But when Hagar knew she was pregnant, she began to treat her mistress Sarah with contempt. Now everybody's mad. Sarah's jealous. Hagar's acting smug. Abram's caught in the middle like, Lord, what do I do? Sin brings confusion every time. This wasn't faith. This was flesh. And flesh brings friction. Verses 5 and 6. Sarai blames Abram. Then Sarai said to Abram, this is all your fault. Ain't that how it goes? We run ahead of God, then blame everybody else when it blows up. Abram replied, look, she's your servant, so deal with her as you see fit. So Sarai treated Hagar so harshly that she finally runs away. Now it's full-blown family disaster. Hurt feelings, we got a runaway servant, and everybody's suffering because nobody trusted God's timing. Verses 7 through 12, God finds Hagar. God's not done yet. Even when people fail, God still shows mercy because He's good. The angel of the Lord found Hagar beside a spring of water in the wilderness. The angel of the Lord is a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ. God Himself comes to meet a broken, mistreated servant girl. He tells her, return to your mistress and submit to her authority. I will give you more descendants than you can count. Then He names her child. He says, you are to name him Ishmael, which means God hears. For the Lord has heard your cry of distress. Hagar's son will be wild and he'll be independent, but God still blesses him and He sees Hagar in her pain. Verses 13 through 16, thereafter, Hagar used another name to refer to the Lord. She said, you are the God who sees me. Let that hit you. God sees the overlooked. He hears the outcast. He speaks to the brokenhearted. So Hagar gave Abram a son, and Abram named him Ishmael. Abram's 86 years old when Ishmael's born. But this wasn't the promised son. This was man's attempt at fixing what only faith could fulfill. So what's Genesis 16 teaching us? First, God's promises are fulfilled by faith and not human effort. Second, waiting is hard, but disobedience is harder. Third, even when we mess up, God still sees, He hears, and He redeems. Fourth, you can't force God's plan. You got to trust His timing. Listen, if you've ever gotten in ahead of God, tried to fix things your way, or made a big old mess, you're not alone. Genesis 16 is full of people who did just that. But even in the wilderness, God shows up. He's the God who hears. He's the God who sees, the God who keeps His word, even when we stumble. So trust Him and keep reading your Bible. And don't be dumb.